sitting at my desk.
Super. Thanks.
Not college. College level is too bad.
Yeah, so we'll give, we'll go wait another minute, see
Do
if,
you want me, Ryan, do you want me to try to call her, Gina? I texted
yeah,
her.
yeah, you want to try her real quick,
Sure.
see if she can hop on? Lauren Savatillo was the other mom that was gonna hop on.
I might have her number too.
Okay,
I'll check to see if it's in the football.
Steve, this doesn't say practice session anymore.
no, we're on right now. It's recording.
Mhm.
Ryan, Gina's logging in now, she said.
Great.
Hey, Ryan, can you see me?
I can, let's see, there's two parents look like they just logged on. If you could click your camera to put the video on. I just want to make sure we have the right names under each of you. And we've got, okay. So that's Lauren. Hi, Lauren, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We just need to rename you. We have you.
Oh,
You're Gina Wade.
Yeah.
oh, really?
I'm like, Lauren, your hair is long. Your hair is long.
I thought my kids changed my Zoom name. I was like, uh-oh.
Okay, so I think we can get started and we can get the names corrected. I'll have Hillary start everything.
We're live. We have started.
Okay. Are we up?
We are live. We are live.
Okay. All right. I believe we are live. I know some parents are joining us still right now. It looks like we have, yeah, a lot of families still clicking on, and see them in the participants portion down below. So thanks for all being with us tonight. My name is Ryan Aselta. I'm the Director of Admissions and Marketing at St. Joe's, and we're excited to have you for our fourth and final installment of our SOFA Social webinar series. And tonight is our parent-to-parent webinar. And last year, this was my personal favorite webinar that we did. We had a lot of great questions that were sent in for parents to really let the St. Joe's parents share their stories of what the school has meant to them and their family, and especially their sons. And I think we have a great panel of parents with us tonight that can answer your questions, but also tell you a little bit about what the St. Joseph experience and living that experience was like for them. And we kind of have a wide variety of parents. So I'm just going to introduce everyone and go around the panelist board. For questions, the way this works on our SOFA socials, you can type your question in the Q&A bar. So at the bottom right, you'll see the Q&A button. Click that, and you can type any questions that you have for parents. And like I said, we have a wide array of parents who have sons that have either graduated from St. Joe's, are currently at St. Joe's, took part in athletics, performing arts, our scholars program, many different aspects. Chances are their sons have experienced one aspect of the St. Joe's life. So I'm just going to go around. Hillary Barnett is with us, our admissions coordinator. As always, we have Clem Friday with us tonight. Clem is the father of Van Friday, who graduated in 2021, so just last spring, and he's now a proud Stonehill Skyhawk, which they're called now. I'm a Stonehill alum as well. He's got his Stonehill sweatshirt on. Very good, Clem. And Van is doing great playing football up at Stonehill in northeastern Massachusetts. To go around as well, we have Erica Brennan. So Erica is the mom of two boys who are currently at St. Joe's. Shane, who is a senior, and Thomas, I believe, is a sophomore. Is that right, Erica? Yeah. And she's also married to a St. Joe's alum, John Brennan, from the class of 1991. So a lot of green and gold in the Brennan blood. So she'll be able to share that with us tonight. Steve Laux is here with us tonight. He is the father of a sophomore here at St. Joe's. His son Jack is a Donnelly Scholar and very involved in our performing arts program and many other aspects, community service driven young man at St. Joe's. We also have Jennifer Edmonds, whose son Peter is a senior at St. Joe's right now. So he'll be class of 2022. Peter is a lacrosse player and one of our Green Knight ambassadors as well. Ellen Mahoney is here tonight. Ellen's son Connor, many of you have either met Connor, who's the president of the student council and one of our bright ambassadors. He spoke at our open houses this fall and has met many of the families that are on here tonight. Connor actually joined us on our last webinar, who was sharing his experience in clubs and activities and student council. Ellen's son Michael also graduated in 2011, and Ellen's son husband Mike graduated. I'm not even going to attempt to get that year correct. I know it was in the 80s. Am I right, Ellen?
Well, 75.
75. Okay. So tell Mike I was being nice. Okay.
He'll appreciate that.
We have Lauren Savitillo with us tonight. Lauren's the mom of two Green Knights. One of them, Nick, you probably met last year. He was one of our great ambassadors. He graduated in 2021. He's now at TCNJ playing football down there. And Nick, I still keep in touch with Nick, and one of our great ambassadors last year who spoke to many of you and probably led a lot of you on tours that came through last year. And her younger son, Michael, is a freshman after going through our Knightsbridge Academy last year. Michael is now a class of 2025 student and a ninth grader at St. Joe's. And I believe we have Gina Wade. I think Gina is on here. Gina's son, Jalen, is a senior at St. Joe's. He's also one of our ambassadors, so you've probably had contact throughout this fall and last spring. He's a football player. Jalen also runs track at St. Joe's. And he was actually just featured in one of our student profiles. So you may have seen that on social media. So a wide range of parents that we have on here tonight to answer your questions. Like we said, just type your questions in on the Q&A board, and I'm going to direct those to the appropriate parent and hopefully let them share their stories. Guys, all of you were in these parents' shoes. Some of you just a couple years ago, some go back a little longer when your son was an 8th grader. I'm curious, and I guess maybe Erica, I'll start with you. You've had two boys over the last few years make the decision to come to St. Joe's. When the boys were looking, was there something that really stuck out about the St. Joe's culture or really made you as a mom know that this was going to be the right place for your two boys?
Yeah, so when we first took our older son to the open house, we weren't really sure how he was going to feel about a Catholic school. He'd been at a public school, and he felt very welcomed. He felt very comfortable. He did a night for a day, and he felt like the teachers were very concerned and respectful to the students, and that just kind of won him over to the whole experience. And then Tommy kind of watched all of that, and Tommy felt also very welcomed by, Tommy's a lacrosse player, so he felt very welcomed by the boys at open houses and different events, and couldn't wait to join the family.
Steve, how about you? You guys came from a Catholic school community close by in Hillsdale. So Catholic education was important to you. Obviously, families have a lot of great choices in our area when it comes to parochial high schools. Why was St. Joe's the place for Jack to start his high school career?
Well, from our perspective, it is a family endeavor as far as the decision process is concerned. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of great schools in this area, both in the private community as well as the public community. So students are very fortunate. They have a lot of options. And that really was the driving force for our experience, is having options. And the one word that really comes to mind, and it continues to come to mind with Joe's, is opportunity. Joe's is a community where the students will have a lot of opportunity. You mentioned some of the different activities and sports, but really beyond that, opportunities to really come into their own as young men in a faith-based environment. And for our family, that was very important.
Yeah. Curious. I mean, Eric and Steve sons are currently at St. Joe's. Clem, your son just graduated last year. So you remember when he was looking at St. Joe's and what was probably stuck out to you as important. Looking back now, after Van has completed that journey, how did St. Joe's live up to the expectations that you had going into it?
Well, in terms of the expectations, I'm going to say Van was not enthusiastic about coming to St. Joe's. You would have to kind of know a little bit about the situation over here in New York in the East Ramapo School District. Van kind of grew up in the East Ramapo School District, which basically is a African-American Hispanic school district. Now, me and his mom, we decided that we needed for Van to get a little bit more exposure, to have a little bit more diversity, to be around white people, and we wanted someplace for him to go. We looked for schools, and it washed out that St. Joe's was the best school. And Lauren, I've known Lauren for many years, because Lauren used to actually bring her son over to Spring Valley to play football with Van. So that kind of worked into my decision to put him there. He was kicking and screaming for freshman year. Why y'all put me over here? I don't want to be here. I want to be with my friends. All of a sudden, he was in a co-ed school, and all of a sudden now he's in a school with all boys. But after his first year, he settled down. He loved St. Joseph's. He loved his classmates. He loved playing football. He did not go any day without having something that represented St. Joe's on his body. I used to say, Van, you have other clothes. Why every day you have to have something on that says St. Joe's? So I say that to say he really became a part of the community. He enjoyed his experience. He did very well athletically and academically. And I think that St. Joe's, for me, I have become a St. Joe's person through this all. And, I'll always be a St. Joe's person, Bree Green Knight, and Van will, and he loved it there. And I don't think he'll ever forget his experience, his 4 years at in Montvale.
Clem, your story and Van's story is familiar to me. I grew up in Rockland County in that same school district, actually. And I went to public school up until 8th grade. And I went kicking and screaming to St. Joe's. My dad and mom made me do that. And very quickly, the same type of story. Once you got acclimated and met those friends and became part of that community, just a half a semester in, it felt like home, and there was no looking back from that point. And we do get a lot of students who come from not only Rockland County and the public schools but many of the public schools are making up the core base of our enrollment right now. So it is a bit of adjustment, but the boys do adjust very, very quickly. Ellen, not much of an adjustment, I would say, for your family. You had an older son come to St. Joe's. As we said, your husband was at Green Knight, and now Connor is here. Curious to what you've seen, particularly out of Connor over his 4 years. Now that he's a senior, Connor's very involved in a lot at St. Joe's, a lot that we do as a school. He's been very helpful with us. Was he like that as an 8th grader, or has that kind of been the St. Joe's process of him growing into himself a little bit?
He honestly was born a Green Knight. He learned to walk up at the football field and the baseball field, and he just couldn't wait to get there and to follow the footsteps of his brother. So when my older son, Michael, was there, he was the ball boy for football and for baseball, and he couldn't wait to get there. Connor happens to be that outgoing young man. And when he started St. Joe's, he just jumped in at every opportunity, from student government, football, basketball. He plays golf. He just loves every minute of being there. And he's always volunteering. He's always looking for new things to try to do. He recently was going to go out for the bowling team just because he was like, oh, let me try bowling. He didn't make the team, which was fine. But that's his personality. But I think St. Joe's just opened so many doors for all the boys, to give it a try, from the different clubs to the sports to the, theater. Football finished 2 weeks ago, and he and his teammates sat on the hill after the game for a good hour. They didn't want to take their uniforms off. They didn't want it to be over. Eventually they had to get undressed, and then later that night, a bunch of the boys went back and they just sat on the field and they didn't want it to be over. They weren't ready for it to be over, but they also wanted to be together. And again, it's that brotherhood, it's that family. So it was a special moment, for them.
Yeah. So I just want to remind families that are on here, if you have any questions for us, whether that be any of the parents or us from the admissions office, feel free. You just have to click on the Q&A and you can type your questions in, and hopefully you can fire those away, and we will direct those to some of the parents here. I want to go off of what Ellen was talking about and ask you, Jennifer, because your son Peter is also a senior. May not necessarily have been as outgoing when he was coming to St. Joe's, but I know you've seen a bit of a transformation with Peter at St. Joe's, and I've gotten to know him this year. And I remember being at a school fair, and he was just representing our school with his personality. He was talking with families and very, very comfortable. That may not have been the case when he was a 13 or 14-year-old boy entering St. Joe's, right?
No, not at all. He was, he made the decision to come to St. Joe's. He looked at every single solitary school, Bosco, Bergen, everywhere. And he really felt, just walking through the halls and everything, sort of a family feeling. We come from a very good school district, public school district. He wanted to sort of go out of his comfort zone. He definitely is more of a quiet, he's a very thoughtful kid, quiet, thoughtful. He really speaks when he thinks it's more necessary to speak. He doesn't just come out, he's not crazy outgoing, but he loved the school. He walked in the doors and he came home and he was like, that's where I want to go. And, a little out of his comfort zone. He definitely was. He loved it when he got there. Definitely a very family oriented feeling. I even know I'm not in the school that much, but when I go in the hallways, everyone's like, oh, hi, I'm Mrs. Edmonds. So again, even for me, I get that feeling. He's loving it. I mean, every year you see a little bit, he comes out of his shell a little bit more. He's, he's done very well academically, sports, he's gotten involved with a lot of different things, has a lot of great friends. He's very good friends with Shane. And Shane's brother's Tommy's on the lacrosse team with him. He loves lacrosse. So, they have a great group of kids on the lacrosse team, and he's just really come into his own, I think. He's, and one thing people forget, even though he's got tons of friends at Joe's, he still, sees and hangs out with his friends at Highlands. or, our school district. So that's, that's great too. So even going to the school, you can sort of have your own life, away from St. Joe's too. And, it's a really great experience both ways.
Yeah. Lauren, I want to ask you about the family aspect, because I know you guys as a family have been immersed in St. Joe's, with Nick being there for 4 years and now Mikey there in his second year after completing the Knightsbridge Academy. How much has St. Joe's meant to your family, and how much of that, family aspect is an extension of your family? Is St. Joe's almost an extension of the Savatilla family?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why we chose to go there. We just felt so welcomed, from the time that we visited there. The boys consider their classmates their brothers. And, when Nick first started, we said, let's try it. And, if you love it, you stay. If not, you can go back to public school. And he came home and he was like, I'm not going back, I'm staying here. And then Mikey did the bridge last year, and what a great opportunity for him, being that, with the whole pandemic, he was in school more during the bridge than he would have been in public school. So we took full advantage of that program, and he feels the same way. I'm not leaving this school, I'm staying. So
that's so great to hear that it's carried over from one brother to the next. I know Mikey obviously lived the 4 years that Nick was there also, so he's getting a full he's getting an 8-year deal at St. Joe's.
yeah.
I think Gina is with us. Gina, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. We can't see you, but we're gonna listen, because I do have a question I want to direct your way. In talking with Jalen recently, we talked about looking back on the 4 years, how it's been for him. But I know Jalen comes from a pretty long way from Linden to commute to St. Joe's, and he was expressing to me how he wakes up every day excited to go to school at 5:30, despite the traffic, despite how long that may be. We do have a lot of parents and families who are considering St. Joe's that do have quite a commute. How has that been for you guys as a family, and Jalen, putting in that time to get to St. Joe's, and then what he's gotten out of it as a student athlete?
Well, just like the other parent had said, their son visited a number of private schools. We did as well. And when I first heard about St. Joe's, I said, isn't it by New York? Like, are you kidding me? He's going to ninth grade. I'm sending my son to school by New York. Like, absolutely not. And so then he did his freshman for a day. And he immediately, after the I don't want to call it the religious class, the theology class. After the theology class, I mean, along with the ambassador that he toured with, the theology class, he felt a connection. Everybody was just so welcoming and so warm, and it just felt right. When you find that perfect mate or that perfect car, that perfect house, it just felt right. And we always knew that he would probably go to private school, even though he said he would never go to a school where he would have to wear a tie. But of course that changed quickly. And when we made we didn't make the decision. I knew where I wanted him to go. We left it for him to tell us, because we didn't want to influence his decision. And he ended up choosing St. Joe's. I said, are we getting off at exit 171 or are we getting off at exit 160? Like, what are we doing? And he said, go to 171. So here we are. And I will say this, those that come to St. Joe's, whether you're near or far, the boys come there and they want to be there. And I can honestly say in 3.5 years, because he's a senior now, 5:30 a.m. every morning. Not a complaint, not a gripe, not a lateness. And then of course, when it's time for a season, whether it's track or football, he's there very late. He doesn't get home sometimes until 7 o'clock at night. It is roughly about an hour away. I used to drive that. I used to drive that an hour, taking him to school, hour coming back. Then I would do what I have to do, an hour going back to pick him up and an hour coming back. So we were in the car literally 4 hours a day, but always on time. His grades are good. He's on the French National Honor Society as well as Ryan said, he's one of the St. Joe's ambassadors. He has made friends for life. And even now, it was kind of not a hard decision for us, but the friends that he no longer went to school with, they kind of, disassociated themselves with him, but he didn't miss a beat because he's up in Montville, Ramapo, Wyckoff, literally like 3 out of the 7 days out of the week, with his brothers from St. Joe's. And it was the best decision. Like Ellen said, the boys are up on the hill. They were crying, we were crying, we're all crying. And then just to know, becoming a senior came really fast. And just to know in like 6 or 7 months, they'll be freshmen again is, I've been crying since January, but don't tell anybody. But yeah, so it was well worth the trip. If I can just end it like that, well worth the trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's well put. And I'm curious, you mentioned something about Jalen wanting to be there and all the boys at St. Joe's wanting to be there. And I've gotten a lot of questions this fall from families who may not necessarily be familiar with the Catholic school type of environment, but certainly not an all boys Catholic school environment. And they asked about social issues in our high school, whether we have, some public schools, there's bullying issues, some of the social issues that boys that are 14, 15, 16 years old are dealing with in a public school setting, going to school with girls. I've tried to explain that they don't deal with that at St. Joe's. Some of those social barriers are broken down at St. Joe's because of the structure of our school, and that the boys, when it comes to something like like bullying, that stuff doesn't happen because the boys want to be there and they're there for a specific reason. I wonder if any of you guys have an opinion on that, on the culture of St. Joe's and what you've seen over the last few years.
Can I answer for
Sure, yeah.
a second? So recently a friend of Tommy's transferred in and I said, oh, well, he'll get to know kids on the team. That'll be great. Like he'll get to know people right away. And Tommy turned to me and he goes, Mom, it wouldn't matter if he was on a team, if he was in a club or what. As soon as he's in that building, he's accepted. He's a brother. He's part of us. And I said, whoa, okay. And he's like, that's how it is, Mom. That's how it is. And I said, okay. And I think that they all feel that way, that they all feel a part of each other's collective accomplishments, I think they all support each other and welcome each other, whether they're a sport, whether they're in the theater, whether they're in a certain club. They show up for each other at their different events and they want to see each other succeed.
All right, we do have some questions. Thank you, Erica. And it's kind of stemming off of that. We have a question coming in. Is there a division between sports kids and non-sports kids? And I think, Erica, you hit on that a little bit of the support from each other. And, maybe I'll ask, Steve, you have a son who is heavily involved in performing arts and I believe the chorus. And I guess maybe Ellen and Steve may want to answer this. Ellen, you have a son who's involved in many different aspects of school. Steve, what do you think about that? You have the athletes, you have the performing arts kids, you have kids who are just heavily involved in their academics. Do you see a lot of division or do you see them kind of blend together as one community?
Well, I mean, I was actually quite surprised at the level of crossover amongst the different activities. Number one, from a scheduling standpoint, I mean, to have somebody who is on the baseball team, and if you're on the baseball team, again, very demanding schedule, to also be part of the theater program, I'm thinking, boy, this is an active choice. This is somebody who's saying, I'm going to make this work somehow. And it's great because you also get, a lot of different perspectives. And then you get the extensions into their networks as well. So for instance, if there is maybe a few players from the baseball team or the football team in the theater program, they have their circle of friends as well. And it just kind of grows organically from there. And I'll give you a perfect example. So in addition to the theater activities, Jack is also involved in a number of other clubs. And I was asking him about the yearbook club. For instance, he's working on the yearbook this year. And I said, oh, who was there with you today? And not only did the list feature students that I know are from maybe more quote unquote sports environment or more academic, but also across all grades. So you had seniors, juniors, sophomores, all working together on a project together. And to me, I was very impressed with that. And that just kind of speaks to the variety. There's a lot of variety. And again, it goes back to that opportunity and what you were saying before about that level of brotherhood. It really does cut across all classes, all activities, because when they're there, they're in unison with one another. And it's hard to articulate that until you actually see it demonstrated for you. But it's totally true.
Yeah. Yeah. Ellen, you have some thoughts on that? We're from a mom of a son who does a lot of crossover. He's an athlete. He's in student council. He has founded the stock market club. What do you think about that aspect of crossover?
And again, I think what Steve said, it does go back to all the opportunities that St. Joe's allows the boys to have. So many choices, from sports to theater to clubs. I just think the support for every activity is there amongst the boys. I mean, Connor with the football team, they easily at every home game, there were 100 students in the stands cheering, dressing up, because they would have a theme for every game. To just recently, they had a play, and a number of the boys from the football team, they stayed after practice and went to see the theater. And I think that's throughout the whole school year, that the boys are in constant support of each other, no matter what the activity is. Just even recently, they did a sleep out to raise money for Covenant House. And that was across the board, from freshmen to seniors. And they all came together for this one event to sleep outside. And that's something the boys have done for a number of years now. But even like at lunch, like I'll say to Connor, who'd you sit with? He goes, oh, well, today was this schedule and I sat over here. And then he happens to be very lucky. He goes to school with his cousins, and every now and then he gets to actually have lunch with his cousins. And he goes, oh, I sat with, Stephen and Dan, and they're sophomores. And, so I think there is just that comfortable feeling that you can walk into the cafeteria, you could walk into the gymnasium, into the theater, or just down the hallway, and the boys are greeting each other, and they're comfortable with each other.
Yeah. I think I had one of the boys tell me recently that St. Joe's allowed him to be him, to be himself. And it took a little while for him to find himself. And once he did, he was comfortable with being whoever that turned out to be, because he knew he had support meant from many different of the boys at the school. Clem, we have a question coming in for you. How did St. Joe's prepare your son for college?
Okay. One of the things that when Van started St. Joe's was teachers and their styles. And he was not accustomed to some of the styles. Some teachers who would not, in his mind, didn't teach. And me and his mom had to explain to him that this is a good preparation for college, because in college you can have some teachers who are aloof, some teachers who give you the syllabus, some teachers who expect you to do this, expect certain things to be natural, and some that teach the old-fashioned way that you expect. So he had to get accustomed to different teachers, and that I know is helping him now at school, because now he knows from the experience of St. Joe's that all teachers are not like middle school. They don't go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Sometimes they go A, and then you got to fill that in, and you got to make some sense out of some of the stuff that they do. So you have to be a little bit more aware, and that's one of the things that stands out to me in terms of him having to focus on learning how to get more out of himself in order to get to that end result which he wanted to get to. Because Van has been somewhat privileged in terms of academics. He's been a national honor student, and then he came to St. Joe's and he was nervous. He was like, "Oh, that is hard, it's hard." And he turned out to be a national honor student and a national honor student in French also. So he did very well in school. And I think that just he's at your alma mater now. And one of the first things he told us when we went up there the first time to visit, he says, "Dad, even the seniors are nice." He said, even the seniors up here are nice. So he's learned how to assimilate with others and to be able to find his niche within that community to get what he wants to get out of the whole situation. So St. Joe's prepared him for that. I'm glad that like a lot of parents are saying that their sons wanted to go. Van didn't want to go. He ended up loving it. And you can't tell Van nothing about St. Joe's. So I am happy that St. Joe's was a part of his life and he is now focused, and St. Joe's helped him to focus because of what they did, the different styles, the different teachers and the different friends, etc., etc. So that's my best answer.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer, Clem. Very well put. We have a bunch of questions lined up from families that are coming in. So we're going to start going through some of these. Michelle wants to know, how are parents able to get involved at St. Joe's? We have a group of parents that have been very involved. I guess maybe Lauren, you were involved with Nick being at St. Joe's and some of his sports and activities and different events. How do parents get involved at St. Joe's?
Well, I think definitely the sports help. Every sport has like a parents group that you can join and help volunteer. This year I actually joined the Unico at St. Joe's. So now I'm on the board for Unico. So the Parents Guild, it's great to join. There's so much involvement that you can do. It's, if you have the time, it's definitely a benefit.
Gina, I know you've also been involved in many aspects of the St. Joe's life. Is that something you just kind of volunteer at different events, or obviously is through specific sports with Jalen? How has that been getting involved with the parent community at St. Joe's?
It's just like how the boys like to be together or love to be together, the parents love to be together. And so whether it's an open house and you bring the baked goods, or you're checking off names, or just anything outside of sports. Everybody knows sports brings everybody together, but the school brings everybody together as well. Jalen, even in 9th grade, he wanted to do some part of theater, but it just was too many conflicts. So he would have never wanted to do theater anywhere else. So volunteering, with the parents and just wherever I could help, because he got so much out of being there. I wanted to also contribute my part to the school to continue on with that, if you want to call it, tradition of being there and helping other parents make the decision if you're on the fence, letting them know about our experiences and our, obstacles and things like that, and just how we wouldn't have chose anything else.
Yeah. My dad's been trying to get Jalen back in that theater for 4 years, Gina.
I know.
He lets me know every day, when are you going to bring Jalen back down to the theater? So I'm still trying. We have a question from Dave. Maybe Jennifer can answer this one. How involved do you get with classwork over the years at St. Joe's? Are there resources to help your boys with homework and studying, or are you sitting down with them to help them complete assignments and study for exams? How has that been over the 4 years for you and Peter?
Well, I've been actually very lucky. Peter's, I haven't had to get very involved with things with Peter. He kind of takes things on his own and just goes and does it. Now, and every once in a while, he'll say, "Oh, I need some help" or something. One thing about St. Joe's, which I have a daughter who's about 2 years older who went to a Catholic school in the area. one thing I absolutely loved about St. Joe's is he could go up to any teacher at any time and he felt comfortable enough to ask questions and they would always help him. I say that because at my daughter's school, it just wasn't the same. And it was and my daughter being 2 years older and I had that experience with her, I couldn't believe how fantastic the teachers were and how willing they were to help. And again, he didn't need as much help, but whenever he did, he was just like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll go talk to this teacher. I'll see him in the morning. And they were like, sure. He could text them at night, and say, can I come in the morning? And they were like, they would answer. I mean, I still to this day, it was truly amazing to me. I mean, I thought it was fantastic because I just, didn't think that that's what they did anymore. What teachers did anymore. And, he loved his teachers. He loved having conversations with them. And, that was one of the best experiences about St. Joe's, I have to tell you. It's just the faculty and people involved.
Yeah, and it really lends itself to when we tell families that it is a family atmosphere, and that goes down to the faculty and the teaching environment and the relationships that the boys build with their teachers. They have access to teachers, just like you have access to family members via text or meetings or phone calls. The students have that ability to do that. Steve, what about you when it comes to that with schoolwork and how involved you've been? You have a son who's a Donnelly scholar, a very demanding academic curriculum that he has on a daily basis. How involved have you and Brenda been with some of his schoolwork?
We actually haven't been super involved. He's kind of self-sufficient in that way. But what I can tell you is, within the Donnelly Scholars group, they really rely on peer-to-peer mentoring as well, which was something I didn't expect to happen. But they kind of gravitate to one another and really try to mitigate situations amongst themselves before they bring it to anybody else. But he's been doing okay. I saw there was another question in there about how do they manage their schedules, and it's actually it's a good segue into that topic. Yeah. In addition to the academics, a lot of the boys are very involved, and some of the students might be traveling from very far. So you're talking an extremely long day. And we sometimes have to reel him back in because he is getting so involved, which is funny because when he first started at the school, we were kind of, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And then once he did, he really went all in. And, it's been a work in progress as far as managing both the academics and the extracurricular activities.
Yeah, maybe someone else has something on the time management aspect. I don't know if Erica or Ellen, you want to hop in? You have boys who are very involved. How do they learn that skill? Because they come in as ninth graders. Most of them don't possess the skill of time management. I am the parent of an eighth grader, and he does not have that skill yet. And he's getting ready to go to St. Joe's next year. So I wonder, at what point does it click, or is it taught to them by some of the teachers to help them balance athletics and clubs and schoolwork?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a combination of both. St. Joe's provides the structure with the Google Classroom. So every week you know what the assignments are from the previous week and the following week. So as a parent, you have the information, you know what the assignments are for the upcoming week. So you're aware of that. After school, the teachers are always available. And I think it's a work in progress, especially for our freshmen, to try to figure out, the amount of homework they get from which particular teacher and what their activities are. So I do think freshman year that you have to sort of guide them a little bit. I know with Connor, I printed it for him, when it was sent out on Friday, I would print it. I put it on his desk, and then throughout the week I would say, how are you doing? Do you have everything? Do you need anything? And of course his answer was, always fine, Mom, I got it. And he did. But I do think the teachers are there after school for them. They also reach out to parents when they have concerns about what they see your son is doing. And I also have gotten positive emails about something that Connor did or something that happened in the classroom and how he reacted. So the teachers are very aware, but I do think freshman year is definitely a year that it's a work in progress, and they do need your support, but they also need to become independent. And then for some of the boys, it does take a little bit longer. You know, it might be into their sophomore year before they have figured it out, you know, the balance of the academics, the rigor, and the extra activities.
Yeah. Clem, you had your hand up. I see it there. Did you want to add something to that about the time management and juggling schedules?
Yes, I did. Ellen mentioned freshman year, and in terms of her looking at the schedules, that's was my job. I looked at the schedules. I was, okay, Van, you're supposed to be doing this, this. And until he got to the point, he said, Dad, I got this. Now, Steve mentioned earlier, or someone mentioned earlier about the time management with the kids. Now, Van had academics, he had football, he had wrestling. I used to feel so sorry for him because he had a lot of discipline, because every night Van would be up very late doing his homework because he had a lot of demanding classes that he had to spend a lot of time doing homework. So he was up late almost every night, but he had the self-discipline. I couldn't help him do his homework because the math that they do, after seventh grade, I forgot, I couldn't help. So there's nothing for me to look at. But he took it upon himself. We never had to worry about him doing his homework because he was always very competitive. So he wanted to get his things together. So he made sure that whatever he did, because he knew that if he did not do well, we weren't going to learn to wrestle or play football. So he took it upon himself to make sure that he got his work done. He stayed up a little late to get it done, but he got it done, got it in on time. And, you know, that's how he did it. You know, some people might not be able to stay up late like he did to do his homework and then get up to go to school and function well, but was the way it went for him.
Gina, you want to hop in on that one as well?
Yes, just to piggyback off of what Mr. Friday said. Also, I don't want to say downtime because they have very little downtime during the school day. If they have a study hall or if they finished an assignment early. I know Jalen didn't wait until he came home to do his homework. So he would take advantage of whatever time he had during the school day. And even I think there's an hour or so in between school and practice. He would do his homework then, or at least the majority of it. And then of course, look back over once he got home, but just during the day, taking advantage of that extra time.
Yeah, and it leads into one of the questions from Deborah that has a question. How does St. Joe's form their schedules so there's no conflict with sports and clubs? And they do just that. Students have time after school to see their teachers, get homework done, or go to a club. So any of the athletics and performing arts don't start till closer to 3 o'clock. So the boys have just about an hour every single day. If they need to get some work done, if they need to study because they know they have an exam the following day, if they need to get some extra help and go meet with a teacher, they have the opportunity to do that before they go to practice or rehearsal, or go to a club. Many of the club meetings are at 2 o'clock, so a student can go to a club meeting from 2 to 2:30 and then get ready to go to lacrosse or soccer practice. The schedule is structured that way to give them the opportunity to get those things done prior to the extracurriculars, so that when they get home at 6, 7 o'clock at night, sometimes after practice or rehearsals, they're not bombarded with hours and hours of homework. They do have time to get a little bit more work done, spend some time with family, and hopefully get some rest, because it all starts again, obviously bright and early the next day. We've got a question from Catherine. She wants to know, did parents find that an all boys environment is more competitive or more cooperative than the co-ed environment their sons came from? Erica, curious your take on that as far as the environment compared to the co-ed environment.
So I'm going to answer as a parent and as a teacher. I think that my sons would say that it's more cooperative. They don't miss the girls being in the class with them. They like being there with just the boys. So I don't think they feel more competitive with their classmates. They feel like they're helping each other. I know when you were people were talking about the work and stuff, a lot of times my sons would get a text, hey, don't forget, we have to study for this test. It's tomorrow or whatever. They're looking out for each other, you know? So I don't think that's competitive. I think that's cooperative. I do teach at an all-girls school. And as a teacher who went to public school, I think it's amazing to be in a single-sex school. I think that you see kids who, when you take some of that away, they're not afraid to try and stick their neck out. They're not afraid to be embarrassed in front of the other sex, that they, you know, they're not trying to impress the other sex. So I think it's a great environment. I was surprised by that when I started teaching in an all single sex environment, but I think that my sons have benefited from it.
Lauren, what do you think as far as the environment the boys have been in and are in currently right now?
Definitely, they feel very accepted, not competitive at all. I've even asked Michael, because, you know, it's his freshman year. He's the newest one there. And he said, Mom, he said, you walk around and no one judges you. He said, we're all in the same boat. We're all boys wearing uniforms in an all boys school. There's no judgment. There's no bullying going on. You know, just so happy.
Yeah. We have another question coming in. My son is reluctant to make the private school choice and leave his friends behind at the public school. We would like him to give it a try. How would you differentiate St. Joe's from the other boys' schools in Bergen County, Bergen and Don Bosco? I'm curious. I mean, many of you as parents looked at the other schools in the area, and you've also now had sons compete against those other schools athletically, probably interact with some of them socially at some level. Curious, Jennifer, I guess we'll start with you on that. What differentiates St. Joe's, you think, from some of the other schools in the area?
Again, I think a bunch of people on the phone have said it. It's the family atmosphere. I mean, it's a little bit, I know it's a little bit half the size of our public high school. I think it was kind of neat coming in and, you know, having a little bit smaller size. You don't get as lost almost, and people know who you are when you're walking down the halls. I mean, you recognize everyone, whether they're your grade or a grade or two above you or below you. And I think that's great. I mean, I wouldn't want a school when you had, 15, 20 people in your class, but there's just enough people where there's enough diversity, enough of all different types of people, but you still feel it's small enough where you have that time with your teachers. Again, it's a very family oriented feeling. That's basically what I would say.
Yeah. Gina, I mean, you talked about how Jalen looked at other schools, other Catholic schools, and he was coming from a public school environment. Curious, what was it that differentiated St. Joe's, and what continued to differentiate as you kind of lived that out for 4 years? What differentiated SJR from some of the other schools in the area?
Jalen is an old soul. So from early on, he was always a little bit more mature than his age group. He wanted more. And not that he didn't or wouldn't, be sad that he's leaving his public school friends behind, because we were a very close-knit family there as well. But he just wanted more. He was looking at the bigger picture. And once he came to St. Joe's, that was just an extension of where he left. And I got to tell you, he went against the grain, because his friends that are his age, he has 2 that are at Bergen, 1 that's at St. Peter's, 1 at Bosco. But I will say, with leaving the friends from public school, those are the only friends that he still speaks with, are those who are at other private schools. So I don't know if that answered the question at all, but your friends are going to be your friends, whether you're in school, in class next to them or not. And you will make new friends, Like I said, we're an hour away. Jalen is up Montville 3 days out of the 7 days, you know, staying over and things like that, because those are his friends. So be open. I would suggest to the son to be open to making new friends, and that it'll be okay. It seems like it won't be in the beginning, you know, because you're young, but it'll be okay, and you'll make new friends.
Yeah, that's great advice. And you know, maybe Steve, you guys came from a Catholic school. We got the public school differentiator when it comes to St. Joe's and other schools, but you know, coming from a Catholic school environment, you were also looking at these same other parochial schools. What was the differentiator between St. Joe's and some of the schools that they're really only 10 minutes from each other, all in this area?
Yeah, there were a number of factors. One was school size, and that speaks back to the opportunity. You know, a smaller school, more opportunity, more familiarity with the community within the school, and also, you know, one of the things that really weighed upon us was, you know, despite the fact that we were coming from a Catholic school for grammar and middle school, you know, Jack, he was the only 8th grader to come to Joe's from his class. So he had a similar situation as that other parent mentioned in the Q&A, in that he was coming into an entirely new environment. And he, you know, he had trepidation. You know, Clem mentioned it before about, you know, kicking and screaming. It wasn't just rah, rah, I'm ready to go there. There was a lot of hesitation on his part because of the unknown. And we just tried to encourage him to say, look, you're going to find that when you get there, everything is going to really turn around, and you're going to recognize the fact that that was the right decision because of that opportunity. And, you know, on top of that, when he was a freshman last year, we're still in the midst of the pandemic. So making friends is very difficult just in and of itself, right? But the fact that those first few weeks of school last year were so pivotal to him getting ingratiated into this new environment. And literally within like a week and a half, he had a tight-knit group of guys that he was friends with, that he's friends with to this day. And again, it just kind of grew organically from there. So I guess my point is that high school is nerve-wracking for everybody. You go from the top to the very bottom as a freshman. So you're going to have that no matter where you go. Yes, it helps if you have friends that are in the school, there's that familiarity, but at the end of the day, you know, it's a bit of a life lesson. You don't always get to curate where you're going in life. So to get used to that kind of adversity, we thought that was, again, another advantage to kind of see where things go and figure it out. And he definitely figured it out in a big way. And we're just so happy for him. And he is so happy to be at the school.
Yeah.
So happy.
Well put. So we're coming up on just a couple minutes to go here. I want to get through our final questions here real quickly. Carol wants to know if students are at school early or late, do they have access to the cafeteria or some place for them to buy food? So I'll just take that. I know in the morning we do have students that get dropped off much earlier than the first bell at 8:10, and they do have access to the cafeteria where they can get breakfast. Some of them find a quiet place on campus to do some last minute homework or catch a 15-minute nap before school starts. The campus is open as well as after school. And many students finish practice and they're waiting for a ride for quite a while. They have access to the campus. After school, usually we see a lot of the boys go right next door to the shopping center, which has the pizza place and the bagel shop right there that they can easily walk next door to. But the campus is traditionally open till 9-10 o'clock at night, which is when usually performing arts finishes or when one of the games that are on campus finish. But they do have a place to go in the off hours. Kimberly wants to know what type of advising happens to help 9th graders get acclimated to the school. I'm not sure if anyone wants to hop on this. If, as Steve mentioned, high school is tough. When you're starting high school, no matter what high school you're going to, it's new and it's difficult. And these boys have a lot going on physically, going on in their mind. they're growing into their bodies and they're growing to be young men. It's such a pivotal point in their life. What's done at St. Joe's to help them get acclimated? I don't know if anyone wants to hop in on that. Go ahead, Erica.
So I would say a couple of things. First, I would say guidance for freshman year, there is one guidance counselor. And I know when Tommy was a freshman last year, we got an email that went to the boys, but also to us, kind of checking in. This is what's happening at school. This, like, start thinking about studying for this. It's almost the end of the quarter. Check with your teachers. And they always knew there was an open door there. So I thought that was great. Tommy's class kind of missed, but when Shane and some of the other senior parents, a lot of them did a freshman community weekends, and that got them up at Esopus. It got them with lots of kids from their grade, just kind of meeting each other, connecting with each other. So there was a lot of they learned a lot on that weekend about who different people were at the school, who to go to. They learned about the community, and they met each other. So that was a really great way for them to get connected. But I thought those two things, guidance, reaching out to them regularly, and that weekend, were big things to get them kind of going. And the other thing I would say, we were talking a lot about kids coming and not knowing anybody, and sitting here with a senior, I think that's preparing them for going to that next step where they're probably going alone. Maybe they'll be lucky and there'll be another green night there, but they're going out on their own. They know how to connect with new people. They know how to meet people. They know how to get help. And I think that's an advantage to them, where if they had stayed in one school for years, they've known the kids since kindergarten, so our kids really have had to start over. And I think that's going to prep them well. So I think anyone who's out there, that's going to be a benefit for your sons.
Did anyone else want to hop in on that transition help that you've seen at St. Joe's?
We have to remember, I wanted to piggyback on Steve a little bit. These guys, and Erica just brought it up too. These are kids that have known these other children in elementary, middle school, junior high, and they've all grown together. They know each other. They're very familiar with each other. Then all of a sudden, they have to go into a different environment. And in my son's stead, he was all of a sudden, now he's going to be thrust with a lot of people that have total different race than that he's accustomed to. So that was a total different transition for him. But the fact that, along with some of the things that Erica said, the fact that he was an athlete, the athletic community was already there and already established. So he was welcomed into that community, which made the outstanding, larger St. Joe's community easier to assimilate into, because he came in knowing that he was a part of something already. And then to branch out to the rest of the school, that it was a lot easier because of that initiation with the athletic start.
Fantastic. And I think on that note from Clem, we're going to start to wrap things up as we've reached just about an hour. We thank you all for being with us. Just a quick reminder, our application deadline is very fast approaching. December 10th is a week from Friday. So if you haven't submitted your application or gotten your application documents into us, now is certainly the time to do that. If you have any questions, you know where to reach myself and Hillary. Feel free to email us or call us, and we can help you step by step through that process. I want to thank Hillary for organizing all of our SOFA Social webinars. She really spearheaded this. We had 4 great chances to connect with many of the families that are hopefully getting ready to become members of the class of 2026 at St. Joe's. So thank you to Hillary, and thanks for all the parents for joining us. You guys are great in sharing your stories and perspective. As a parent, I loved hearing what you guys had to say, and it really opened my eyes to what might be ahead for my son. And that's very exciting as a parent. And I think probably a lot of our parents on board tonight feel the same way. So thank you to all you guys, and thanks to all the families for joining us tonight. And we hope to see you on campus again real soon. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.